Hi, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, an energy worker, a channel, and also a psychic medium. Do lots of different kinds of things to attempt to help you heal, release blocks, move into your future, let go of the painful past, all kinds of things, including quite a number of specialized focuses on Lilith in astrology. And I use the true Black Moon Lilith, or the oscillating apogee. Most available sources will talk about the mean position. I don't use that one. I use the true Black Moon. And in astrology software, you can find out, you can get into the guts of the preferences and select true Black Moon. It can vary up to 30 degrees in any given chart, the average position versus the true one. So anyway, just to make sure you understand, that's where I'm coming from with this. Anyway, my book, Lilith Healing the Wild, it's on Amazon Kindle and also at tdjacobs.com. It's kind of like, a resource on positive approaches to Lilith. And one of the things that I include in it and elaborate in some detail is what I call the 9 stages of the archetype, the 9 stages of the Lilith archetype. So this video, I realize I've never, I don't think I've ever shared that publicly outside like a blog post or something. So I wanted to contribute this to the, what you're learning on YouTube about Lilith. So this is what I've made up. So this is like me sitting, channeling, meditating, thinking, working for years with clients to come up with some kind of map or pathway. I decided I wanted to be able to give people a conceptual framework of understanding the stages that we go through when we live Lilith's stories. And Lilith stories involve, well, it'll kind of become apparent as I talk about it, but a lot of stuff about imbalance and unfairness in relationship. And when one person knows he or she needs to be autonomous and is controlled by somebody else, or when somebody honors his or her body and is punished as a result, or any kind of things about sexual violence and abuse within relationships. A lot of this has to do with Lilith issues. Now, since late 2017, we're having this I don't know how to say it, like an eruption of a lot of the pain from the last many thousands of years of living through the lens of this imbalance between masculine and feminine, which is what we can call the social system that is patriarchy. Sometimes when I use that word, people get turned off like I'm somehow a conspiracy theorist suddenly, and they're like, I don't want to listen to that. But the fact is that we live in this social organization that emphasizes the masculine, that's patriarchy. And in the process, it had to diminish the feminine to make the masculine perspective look better or more worth adhering to and nurturing and fostering. Independent of sex, gender, independent of sexual orientation, we all have masculine and feminine energies. And then, of course, as a collective, we show up as a bunch of individuals with certain gender. So we separate ourselves into these categories, whatever. Anyway, so I wanted to develop kind of a framework to understand the stages of how this living Lilith stories can unfold within us. So, okay, so anyway, there are 9 stages. And the first one is asserting equality. And this is about, Lilith in the mythology. Lilith and Adam were actually created together as one being, male and female. And then after all the animals were named, Adam, male and female together, realized, wait, all the other animals have someone to play with and mate with and be with. And I have nobody. So Adam says to God, wait, I'm lonely. And God says, right, well, I made you male and female. Here, I'll split you. And you get Adam and Lilith. Adam represents the natural masculine principle, which shapes, does, directs, manages, controls, gives shape to. The natural feminine, which is Lilith, is, feels, experiences, senses. So, whenever energy is split down the middle, it's always into this active versus receptive or masculine, feminine, whatever. And in this story that we get from the Hebrew tradition, and a lot of this isn't in the Torah, the what people call the Old Testament, what Christians call the Old Testament, but what Jews call the Torah. But it's in commentaries on it by scholarly rabbis over centuries. So what are called midrashic texts. So anyway, a lot of Jews don't know this story, is what I want to say. And I was raised in a Reformed Jewish tradition, and I never heard this story, right? My learning about Lilith was relegated to, unhealthy archetypes played out, or unhealthy stereotypes played out in media, film, books, TV. So anyway, they're made of the same stuff at the same time. Well, the story goes in their lovemaking, Adam, the masculine side, says, actually, I'm better, so I'm always going to be on top. And Lilith says, wait, we're made at the same time for the same stuff, so we're equals. And Adam says, no, I'm better. You're made of sediment, which is impure. I'm made of earth, which is totally pure. So I should be making these decisions. Remember, the natural masculine always seeks to direct and shape things. So she leaves him, and then he's lonely, and God threatens her, come back or else. She doesn't come back, and this terrible thing happens, which you can read about in Lilith in the Wild. I go into great detail with this story and all the implications for how our society is built around relationship with the feminine and punishing the feminine, right? But anyway, she doesn't come back, so she's punished. She goes into grief. Well, she goes into rage. The story is that men and children and all good people under God's umbrella are not safe, and so she's demonized and made into this terrible, terrible being. Then Adam says, but God, she wouldn't come back, and I'm still so lonely. So God says, great, I'll make some woman out of a bone of yours. She'll never assert equality. That's where we get Eve. So just FYI, some people, when I say, hey, have you heard of Lilith? They say, oh, isn't that Adam's first wife? No. Eve is his subservient wife. Adam is his first mate, his actual other half. Anyway, just a little clarification. So as we've grown up in patriarchal culture based in Judeo-Christian traditions, the natural feminine is vilified, is made wrong and made a villain, while this Eve, this constructed, plasticized idea of what a woman should be like, is heralded and lauded and loved. So anyway, that's where we get this whole split between this. I go into this in Lilith in the Wild. Anyway, so that's the kind of idea. Lilith asserts equality. Hey, we're equals here. And the other person said, this is number 2, is meeting attempts to dominate us or edit us. So the other person says, no, we're not equal. Well, I'm actually in charge, and will do what I tell you. And then, so that's number 2. Then what happens is you either submit because your survival is at stake, or you're afraid you're not going to make it on your own if you were to leave, or you don't have the resources or self-confidence to leave or something. Or you love that person enough that you're willing to kind of roll with this more and give that person the benefit of the doubt. So you either stay, or if you leave, stage number 3 is flight, like running the hell away from somebody who's trying to control you. So, and that's, being apart from what you know is your home. This comes up all the time when I'm trying to go through this, but I have to just tell you these stories. This comes up all the time because the story is so important for so many people. This comes up constantly when you find out about someone who has been abused by a spouse for years, for more than a little bit of time, a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. And your mind automatically goes to this place first. Well, why wouldn't you leave that person? This is Lilith's story. And that person might say, I love her, or I love him. Or that's not who he really is. That's not who she really is. Right? So anyway, it's possible we don't leave. But if we do leave, we have to run into the unknown. Even just adding this little detail in here, those shelters or halfway houses that are secret for women who have experienced abuse, those networks that we have that not everybody knows about, but that kind of like protecting from the abuser, that's a very Lilith story too. Okay, so number 3 is flight. Number 4 is separation, which is feeling that separateness, feeling my home. I can't go back to my home. because I'm being hurt or I'm being controlled or dominated or abused or whatever. So separation is where the number 4 is where the pain starts to come up. Because if you think about it, you're sort of quality, somebody tries to dominate you, you're like, expletive no, and you leave, you have to catch up to your feelings. Again, this is your natural other half. This is someone you love. Even if you've wanted to get away, you love. So in the 4th stage, we feel, right, that. Now, stage 5 is rage. Now, in Lilith's story, the person is punished. Lilith is punished. What it is that when she goes off and she leaves Adam, where she goes is this other place that's said to be full of demons over this area by the Red Sea. And she has a bunch of immortal children every day with the beings who live there who are said to be demons. Well, they're just not under the, umbrella of this patriarchal God, right? They're just other beings. Anyway, so when God sends this or else threat, it's come back or your immortal children at the end of every day will die. So she weighs, be this guy's slave or my kids will die. This is impossible. She ends up not going back because she has to respect herself and be autonomous. Her children die. She goes into rage. Well, we need to understand that the rage of Lilith is actually inspired by pain. All rage, all anger comes from pain. So these are only 5 of the 9 stages. I'm going to do the other 4 in a minute. But I want you to realize that if you live a Lilith story, this is what the culture, and therefore elements of culture, societies and families, vilify you and then blame you for the anger you have at being punished. To make you wrong, to harm you, abuse you, and then make you wrong for what you're feeling. Because now you're difficult. You were difficult before, but now you're dangerous. So people living Lilith stories often get stuck in stage number 5, rage. So that's the cultural teaching on what Lilith means. If you're going to be Lilith, this is what it is. You're off on your own. You're the black sheep. You don't deserve support. You might get hurt because, you're dangerous because you can't be controlled. Okay, moving on to stage number 6, grieving and mourning. Like I said, in stage 4, separation, the feeling caught up with you. 5, rage came up because this is unfair and unjust. And, stage number 6 is you have to take time to deal with the pain. You have to take time to deal with the pain. You have to deal with it. You have to actually grieve. Yeah, I felt punished with my other half, with this place, with these people, or this place where I felt like I belonged. And mourning it. Dealing with the feelings, in other words. Which is sometimes a very downtime, depressive, unhappy, hopeless, because it's like the pain can be so deep and it's a very lonely thing. Remember, you left. You left home. Or community or family or what was known, what was safe. So, number 7 is accepting responsibility. Let's assume we're co-creating our experiences. This is where I get into a little spiritual teaching here with this archetype, with Lilith. Let's each of us assume that we're all co-creating our experiences, even the difficult ones, maybe especially the difficult ones. Because every human, throughout the course of human life, is in an arc of individuation to learn self-validation and self-trust. So if we can accept responsibility that we're co-creating this for a good reason, we've co-created this whole experience for a good reason. Just because everybody else or somebody else shamed us for being different or unique or autonomous or not being willing to be controlled, well, that doesn't mean that we should listen to them. So who's in charge of your self-definition? This is part of my thinking of accepting responsibility. Not, I'm to blame for what I did wrong and how they hurt me. Not that kind of judging, harsh punishment responsibility idea. I'm always sensitive to the fact that just given how we live with Saturn and the idea of responsibility and Virgo and Mercury, You know, taking responsibility for something sometimes makes us feel like we have to capitulate to shame and self-judgment and self-hatred and treating ourselves crappy because something went wrong or we didn't know something. This idea of responsibility is, let me assume I am energetically co-creating everything. Not crazy, but I am energetically co-creating everything. Okay, so that's accepting responsibility, which is empowering. So it's kind of the first actively empowering part of the process. Number 8, recommitting to what's important. What do you want for your life? Who are you? What kind of relationships are you willing to have? Setting boundaries. Deciding what you want for yourself and giving yourself the credit that what matters to you matters. So what are your goals? What do you want to see more of in the world? What do you want to see your community experience that could be helpful to it? The people you love and care about, what effect do you want to have on them? Number 8 is recommitting to what's important. Remember, this whole process has been like, a person may feel torn away from home and therefore floating or untethered, right? And then stuck in rage sometimes. So this is like, okay, let me reclaim my humanity and let me assert that my goals do matter, my needs do matter, I do matter. Okay. Number 9, last stage, re-entering the world. A lot of people who have lived or are living Lilith stories feel burned by groups. Burned by family, society, religious groups. I'm too different. I wouldn't submit to this. I wouldn't submit to that. Being made wrong, forced to the fringe, forced to the outside. So re-entering the world with self-care, self-respect, with the confidence that you matter, but you actually inspired the group to realize that control isn't the only game in town. So therefore you were a dangerous influence. But if you understand this idea of accepting responsibility that we're co-creating things, well, those people needed to be challenged by your non-conformity. So you re-enter the world knowing more about who you are, willing to accept responsibility for co-creating all the aspects of your life, willing to be confident regarding what matters to you. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. If others have shamed you or hurt you or told you you're worthless or made you a demon, it doesn't mean you are. It means that you scared them. Their perception of safety and security was challenged by somebody who wouldn't conform the way they've conformed, under the assumption that if they conform, they'll be safe. You, Lilith person, you may represent to other people, I mean, I'm never safe. Nothing's safe. Nobody's safe. So regarding this idea of an archetypal process, there's no timeline. There's no deadline, right? There's no due date on moving through anything. The idea of an archetype is, okay, like a stereotype, right, is like a joke that's kind of based in something real. The real thing is the archetype, right? Mythology is a story you're told, but archetype, just to contrast this, but archetype is the part of your human psyche that is seeking to unfold through certain experiences and having certain understandings and living in certain ways. So the Lilith archetype is this individuation process to come to trust the self more, even if people don't want to deal with you or think you're the problem or demonize you. So think about that 9-stage process as, like, you might be just, any person living these Lilith stories might be distracted by what is actually going on. And that's totally understandable. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, to give a little bird's eye view perspective and this 9-step process to give you an idea of how to work through things and understand where you are in the process. But I want you to also realize that, you might be in one process for years because you're up against your resistance or the pain that has to get processed. Or, people get stuck in rage. People get stuck in that depression that goes with separation, number 4, or number 5, rage. People sometimes feel like they're wallowing, and I don't mean to say that in a judgy way, but they might feel stuck in grieving or mourning, number 6, right? They might have a really hard time acknowledging that their goals matter because the pain of what has happened before. Number 8, recommitting to what's important. might be really hard to re-enter the world because of having been abused or burned or, you know, controlled and really punished in different ways in the past. So if, as I tell you the story and you say, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm in this phase, and oh my God, I've been there for 3 years, don't judge that. Refuse to judge it. It's normal to have to process and work through things. This is, again, a process of human individuation. Human, you know, becoming strong and self-knowing and self-trusting, willing to be autonomous and respect the self. You know, I didn't mention this, but in all my other Lilith videos, I think I do mention it here on YouTube, but Lilith is an instinctive energy. Groups coalesce around the idea of the group from the mind. So the instinctive energy from your root chakra says yes or no, this is right for me. Your chemistry, your endocrine system, your hormones, your pheromones, your chemistry, as well as energy and emotion and your physical body, all are tied together through your root chakra. So if this person's doesn't work for you, let's say in some lifetime you're told you're supposed to marry this person. Well, what if that person's chemistry, you know, you might like the person and have respect and admire the person. What if that person's chemistry makes you sick? Can you honor your body, right? Can you trust yourself? So Lilith, this archetypal arc or something, this journey is about coming to trust the self, trusting the body, trusting instinct. So anyway, don't judge yourself if you feel stuck in one of these things, because it's a really intense human individuation process that can be really challenging and really difficult. We have the residues of trauma and abuse and all these things, sexual violence of all kinds, control, domination, judgment from our loved ones even. You know, we have being pushed out, the pain from that. We have the self-judgment, maybe I did something wrong and that's why I got hurt. You know, all these things, these layers of debris. So give yourself a chance to process things in in a way that is organic and natural without self-judgment at all. And then realize that you might actually move forward and then back. Like, let's say you get through rage and you're like, okay, I'm willing to get to the pain behind this, and you kind of relax into that. In that process, somehow 3 months later, rage comes up again. That's okay. You might go back and forth. You might cycle through. Don't assume if you didn't go from 1 to 9 in 8 months or something, don't assume you did it wrong. This is an organic thing, just help you understand the development of this thread of consciousness within the human psyche. Okay, resources. Lilith Healing the Wild book, Amazon Kindle and at tdjacobs.com. I have a PDF ebook through my site, is what that is, a PDF version if you don't use Kindle and want one ebook. The Black Moon Lilith natal report, which takes your house, sign, and aspect of your natal true Black Moon Lilith, plus the transits and progressions for 5 years to your own Lilith. That's an automatically generated natal report through tdjacobs.com. Also stay tuned for a home study healing course, including a lot of channeled wisdom and energy work MP3s. I'm not really announcing it, but I'm just stay tuned for that, because I'm really developing this tool that'll take you 2 or 3 months to work through to unlock these Lilith issues. So stay tuned for that. Again, check out what else I'm up to at tdjacobs.com. Thanks for your time and energy. Take care.